Life in Benidorm podcasts.
All right, so today we're diving deep into the history of Benidorm, but not the Benidorm most people picture with the beaches and the high-rises. We're going way back.
Yeah, before the boom. Before it was the Benidorm. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Right, like a total transformation story. So before the mega resorts and the tourist throngs, what was Benidorm? What were we even working with back then?
Well, tourism in Benidorm, it actually started a lot earlier than people realize. Like way before any big plans or anything. It was all down to individuals.
Oh, interesting. So more like intrepid travelers stumbling upon this hidden gem kind of thing.
Exactly. You had these individuals who just saw something special in Benidorm and they shouted about it.
Love that. Word of mouth, the original marketing. Speaking of, there's this guy, Emilio Castellar, who pops up in the research. Sounds like a real trailblazer.
Oh, yeah. Emilio Castellar. He was a writer, a politician, actually. Visited in the late 1800s and just, boom, fell in love with the place, wrote about it in all the newspapers, became like, what would we call it now, an early influencer.
Totally. An influencer before Instagram even existed. I love that. And he wasn't the only one out there singing Benidorm's praises, right? This Francisco Ronda guy, the spa owner, caught my eye.
Ah, Francisco Ronda, another classic example of Benidorm boost tourism. He had this spa, the Balneario Virgen del Sufragio, and he was very deliberate about playing up its proximity to the beaches.
Smart cookie. I mean, even back then, everyone loves a good beach vacation. But what about the town itself? When did Benidorm as, a town start to get in on this whole tourism thing?
Things started to shift in the early 1900s. That's when we see a real move from those individual efforts to something a bit more organized, I guess you could say, towards tourism as an actual industry.
So less happy accident, more like, hey, maybe we're onto something here.
Yeah, exactly. And a key moment in that shift was when they built those chalets on Levante Beach in the 1920s. The Marqués de San Jorge spearheaded that whole project.
Those chalets are adorable. Definitely still a selling point. They must have attracted a different crowd than those early visitors.
They did. You started seeing a wealthier clientele, folks coming from the city, Alcoy, looking for a luxurious getaway. That was big, establishing Benidorm as a desirable destination, not just a place you stumbled upon. And it's also when you see the local government starting to take a more active role in promoting tourism.
So from a handful of passionate individuals to a town starting to recognize its potential. Sounds like things were starting to gain some serious momentum. But was this it? The turning point when Benidorm truly began its transformation?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
But then, boom, Spanish Civil War, 1930s, throws everything up in the air.
Right, completely changes the game.
Exactly. And it took a while for things to really get back on track. It wasn't until after the war, really, that Benidorm's tourism ambitions, got going again.
And that brings us to the man, the myth, the legend Pedro Zaragoza, elected mayor in 1950. I mean, talk about a name synonymous with Benidorm's success.
Oh, absolutely. Zaragoza was pivotal. But you have to remember the context, right? This is Spain, still recovering from war under Franco's rule, a lot of economic challenges. I mean, even in Benidorm, they still had rationing going on.
Wow. Rationing. Talk about a different world. So Zaragoza takes over. What's his game plan? How do you convince a town struggling with scarcity to, buy into this vision of a tourism-fueled future?
Well, Zaragoza, he knew that to really transform Benidorm, it couldn't just be him. It had to be everybody, the whole community. So one of his first moves as mayor, January 1951, he sets up this thing called the Commission Pro Playas.
Commission Pro Playas. Pro beaches, basically, right?
Wait.
I like it.
But what was it? Like a town council meeting, a committee?
It was more than that. It was a real partnership, public and private. You had local businessmen, professionals, even city officials, all these people who believed in Benidorm's potential coming together, putting their heads together.
Love it. A real team effort. So what were some of their first orders of business? What were the biggest problems they were trying to solve? They had to prioritize. Resources were limited. But one thing that was really high on the list, you're not going to believe this, mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. Well, okay, yeah, when you put it like that, not exactly the best first impression for a seaside town.
Exactly. They got that even small things, right, could make or break the tourist experience. There's actually a record of the commission going out of their way to deal with a complaint from, get this, a British tourist.
Wow, talk about going the extra mile. But smart, you got to keep those tourists happy. It's especially the ones traveling from further afield, right? They spread the word. What else? Any other notable initiatives from those early days?
Oh, yeah. One of the best decisions, in my opinion, was they put a stop to construction on Confali Cliff.
Really? Even back then? So they were already thinking about, preserving Benidorm's natural beauty.
100%. They knew that the landscape, the scenery, that's what drew people in. Protecting that was vital. They were ahead of their time, you know?
Yeah.
They also, and this is really cool, they organized photography contests to capture Benidorm's beauty. Beaches, landscapes, the whole 9 yards. They used those photos for promotion.
Wow. Talk about early adopters. They were like the original influencers, right? But instead of selfies, it was stunning landscapes. So we've got mosquito control, top-notch customer service, preserving natural beauty, and now they're early adopters of like visual marketing. Sounds like the Pro Playas Commission was laying some serious groundwork.
Oh, they were busy, that's for sure, and effective. But as things progressed, as Benidorm started to attract more and more tourists, there was a sense that they needed something more, something a bit more, well, official, I guess you could say.
More structure, more organization.
Exactly. Tourism was booming, and they needed an organization with the resources and the know-how to manage it all.
Enter the association Gabriel Miró de Amigos de Benidorm, right? Which is a mouthful.
It is a bit of a mouthful. Formed in 1955, they basically took over from the Pro Playas Commission, a sign that Benidorm's approach to tourism was evolving, getting more sophisticated.
This whole transition, Pro Playas to the Gabriel Miró Association, is fascinating. Shows just how much thought they were putting into this. But before we go there, I gotta ask, why that name? Gabriel Miró, the novelist, for a tourism board. Seems kind of random.
It is a little out there, yeah. But Gabriel Miró, he wasn't just any writer. He really loved Benidorm, famously described it as being like submerged in perfect Mediterranean blues.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. And his books, they introduced a lot of people to Benidorm, you know, painted this picture with words. It worked.
Yeah. Using someone's like artistic passion for a place to then market it. Clever. But speaking of names, I got to ask about another one that came up. Nicolas Franco Bahamonde. Now that name rang a bell.
Franco's brother.
Bingo. Which is, well, it's not your everyday tourism board connection, so what's the story there?
It's definitely interesting, but you got to remember, 1950s Spain, right? Yeah. Still very much Franco's regime. You couldn't just ignore the political landscape, especially not if you were doing something as high profile as, well, frankly, economically important as tourism.
Right, got to play the game. So having Franco's brother on board, that was probably a smart move, strategically speaking.
You could say that. It would have given the association a certain legitimacy, you know? Open some doors for sure.
For sure. Okay, so we've got this new, more official organization. What were some of the Gabriel Miró Association's big moves? Did they just keep doing what the Pro Playas Commission started, or did they shake things up?
Oh, they definitely built on that foundation, but they brought this whole new level of, I don't know, ambition, sophistication. Like, one of their first wins was they convinced Telefonica to install a public phone booth.
A phone booth.
Yeah. Specifically for tourists to call internationally. Can you imagine?
I mean, these days it's like, whatever, everyone's got a phone. But back then, that's huge. Call home, tell everyone about your amazing Benidorm vacation.
Exactly. Showed they were serious about attracting international visitors. But that was just the start. I mean, this association, they were involved in everything. Reprinting those old, what were they called? Postage list stamps, remember?
Oh, right. From the 1930s? Those were cool.
Bringing back a classic. They helped get a movie filmed in Benidorm, Correttor General.
Sure.
Even promoted a novel set there. Anything to get Benidorm out there.
I'm seeing a theme here. They were really good at, like, using all these different channels. Photography, film, even books. Really building this whole, I don't know, vibe of Benidorm. And they weren't afraid to think big either. Tell me about the Spanish Song Festival.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one. They managed to get the festival held in Benidorm, which at the time, that was huge, put Benidorm on the map, culturally speaking.
So smart. And they made sure it was broadcast on the radio, too.
Of course. They weren't just going to, like, not take advantage of that. They understood how to reach people. Media savvy. I love it. But, okay, so you get people interested. They visit once, maybe twice. How do you make sure they keep coming back? Did the association have a plan for that, too? Oh, they were way ahead of the game on that one. They launched a bunch of initiatives to target specific groups. Like, there was this thing called Operation BB. They teamed up with, get this, the city of Bilbao to convince newlyweds to honeymoon in Benidorm.
No way. Honeymooners. That's brilliant. What a niche.
Right. And then there was the Vuelta a España, the cycling race.
Okay, how do you even tie that into tourism?
They're clever. They created a Benidorm branded van, followed the whole race, handing out brochures and stuff. Basically a giant mobile ad for Benidorm.
That's amazing. So smart. Using something that was already popular to get their name out there. They really did think of everything. Brought back those verbenas too, right? The dances in the castle.
Yeah. They knew that, it wasn't just about modern stuff, people love the traditional side of Spain too.
Creating those experiences, those memories, that's what gets people talking, gets them coming back. It's crazy to think, how much these two groups, the Pro Playas Commission and the Gabriel Miró Association, how much they shaped Benidorm's destiny.
It really is. It makes you wonder, what are we doing now that will seem, I don't know, kind of quaint or surprisingly important years from now?
Totally. It's like, what seemingly small choices, what little actions are we taking today that might have these huge ripple effects down the line? It's something to think about.